Magic is an interesting thing. We find it all over pop culture in one form or another. From the wand-waving fantasy kabbalism of Harry Potter to the strange elemental magic of shows like BBC's Merlin. Magic fascinates so many people, so it's important to understand what magic really is and why it holds our focus so readily. It might seem strange to some people, but magic does have roots in reality. It actually comes from a very real school of thought. It's an ancient school of thought that uses words and numbers to affect our reality and the universe. Magicians utilize the full power of words and numbers in order to manipulate human perception and thus affect how we experience the world. The way you speak to people, the words you use, their intention, their truth, these all affect your reality and the reality of the people around you. Words have power, and this power is magical in many ways. Not many people throughout history have understood this power, and those who knew about it would often keep it secret or hidden in plain sight. The power of magic is all around us, there's no escaping it. But there's one place it's now become truly dangerous, and a threat to every single soul on the planet. Just a quick message. Whether it's an algorithm hiding content or outright deletion, internet censorship is on the rise. Please consider following me on free speech websites Gab, Minds and BitChute. I'm constantly posting content and they are a great way to stay notified of uploads. Can't wait to see you there. Have you ever wondered where money comes from and what it actually is? Those little bits of plastic, or paper if you're not from Australia, seem so important, but what are they really? Do they represent anything of value, or are they just little bits of plastic or paper or numbers on a screen? The truth is, they are all worthless. They all represent nothing of value other than the fact that the government tells us that we are required to use these particular numbers as our medium of exchange. These worthless numbers represent how we pay for food, shelter, and all the things we enjoy in life, but they are, as stated, worthless but for the force of the state. But why is something so important ultimately worthless, you might ask? And that's a great question. After all, we deserve to know the true origins of what we now call our money. If they are worthless, we need to know everything, including what it means for the future. Well, here's the cold, hard truth. It all came out of thin air. One day there was nothing, the next day money appeared because someone decided to create it. The people who created the money also get first use of it, so this arrangement suits them perfectly, as you can imagine. We need to explain the situation because some people might be just a little bit confused at this point. The entire developed world uses a financial system right now called a fiat central banking system. That means a central bank has the sole responsibility of managing the money supply within a given political territory, and this bank is privately owned. The central bank creates money by lending it to retail banks, who then pay interest on these loans back to the privately owned central bank. Retail banks then lend this money created out of thin air to the general populace, who also pay interest on those loans, and this is how the retail banks, who own the central bank, make their own profit. It's a fantastic system if you are a bank or if you own a bank. It's even better if you own the central bank and control it from the shadows. Everyone else plays their petty political games. You can control the entire world through the power of money magic. But I digress. It's important to note that from the very first dollar created, the central bank charges interest. Since the central bank is the source of currency, that means there can never possibly be enough money to pay back all the interest owed. The world financial system is one giant Ponzi scheme that started centuries ago and grew into the all-encompassing beast we see around us today. It's a tool to enslave humanity to debt, while those who control the supply of money grow rich beyond anything dreamed of before them. This is the power and price of magic. This is the power and price of creating something out of nothing. our total enslavement, while the perpetrators live lives of luxury and opulence. Both the good news and the bad news is that which cannot mathematically continue will not continue. The entire system is doomed to collapse eventually. When this happens is now up to God. That it will happen is already written. The bankers wrote it into the fabric of existence the day they created it. Their financial magic changed reality for the worse. They violated the laws of God, they violated the laws of nature, and thus only guaranteed that eventually what they created will collapse. This collapse is inevitable. The world cannot avoid what's to come. It will happen eventually. When is very hard to say. You only have the guarantee that it will happen because it has to. It could be years, it could be decades. It's impossible to know exactly when the bubble is going to pop, and bubbles of this size can go on for a very long time. All we can say for sure is that the bubble exists and it will eventually pop, taking the entire house of cards with it. The true evil in all this is that those who use this dark magic, those who created the situation our world is in right now, knew this all too well. They knew the system would fall apart eventually, and they are now making plans for what happens after the eventual collapse. Unfortunately for them, the best laid plans often come apart at the seams, and violating natural law always causes a reaction back to it. No force other than God can stop this. There will be a correction. There is nothing any magician can do about it. Kabbalah only has so much power to manipulate before the laws of God reassert themselves. Know what's coming, prepare for the future, and always keep faith. I hope you enjoyed the video, share the truth around, and I'll see ya when I see ya.
There's been a lot of talk about economics lately, and I've noticed that our dollar isn't purchasing quite what it was, and the price of gold has gone up, and the stock market's looking shaky. And I look at all these factors that to the average Joe it doesn't affect them. But I think about how we got to this situation and what the government is doing. And the government is promising that there's not going to be a recession, that there's not going to be great economic downfall from these geopolitical shifts and these trade wars. But what they don't realize is that our entire system in this country is dependent on foreign systems. We have no autonomy in this country. We are a vassal state of the world's economics and the world's money. And if it doesn't collapse this time with this situation and this housing bubble, it will next time. You see, because the damage control that the state is going into right now is make the bubble bigger. If the bubble gets bigger, it can't collapse. Now, I'm not expecting everyone to understand economics, but what the government's solution is they print more money, they lower the interest rates, they encourage foreign investment, and that way the bubble doesn't collapse, and the cogs and the wheels keep turning of this false fiat economy, and we never have to pay for it. Well, I have a different rule, and we all do here, and under natural order, we pay for everything in this life. Nothing comes for free, and all this growth, these jobs and this growth that they constantly talk of, is built on nothing, absolutely nothing. It is complete fallacy. It is a banana republic. And I'll tell you how they did it. They packed up all of our industry in this country and they put it in container ships and they sent it overseas to the third world. And you know why? Because it was more convenient, because it was cheaper, because they'd make more profit, because it was easier. Not for us, but for those at the top who made these decisions for us on our behalf. They packed up our industry and they sent it over the third world because manufacturing's cheaper over there. And the banks encouraged it. Not only did they encourage it, they conspired to do it. They conspired by not lending money to our industry so that it crumbles, so that the businesses that do stay have no option but to leave or go bankrupt. And all the smart businessmen and all the economic geniuses packed up their industries and moved it overseas So all the great production of the world comes out of the colored masses of these cheap countries where they have slave factory owners. And these slave factory owners work their people to death because they can do that, because they're not us. They're not us. They don't have our values. They don't care about their fellow man we do. They don't have that altruism about them. And we have too much. And when our industry gets packed up and shipped overseas, they do another genius economic trick. You see, they bring in hundreds of thousands of people, now millions a year, into this country and the rest of the Western world. And they do this, and they don't care where they come from. They don't care where they're compatible. All of this is irrelevant. They don't care that you're upset about it. They don't care that they're not integrating. They buy fridges. They buy TVs. They borrow money for homes. And so the banks make more money, and their stocks go up. And Harvey Norman makes more money, and his stocks go up. And anyone that builds shit overseas for cheap, plastic crap, and sends it here to this country, sells more and makes more money, and the whole system reinforces itself. And now we're more dependent on the system. And the politicians will tell you that they're in charge and they have our interests in heart, and they'll keep the whole system afloat. And your house that's $1.2 million, that's actually only worth $500,000, will be worth 1.3 by next year, as long as we keep migrating people in the country and we keep devaluing our dollar and we keep sending our industry overseas. And if this globalist system, this great capitalist, socialist at the same time, this capital, this transfer of capital internationally, which is this great transfer and evening and balancing of wealth of all the world's people, at the same time coupled with the great evening and balancing of all the races of man, where they destroy the uniqueness of all people in the world, starting with us. We're the beta test. We're the first to destroy. The end goal is a few Brahmin class elites of chosen people that sit at the top and count their fucking money every day. And they keep going. And they're so obsessed with this, they will do it even to their own destruction. There is no long-term goal. There's no long-term planning. It's just greed, it's sin, it's chaos, it's haram, however you want to put it. It's the antithesis to who we are. And if you want to know the difference between our worldview and theirs, if you want to know the difference between what we are going to create and their world, when you look at the two worlds right next to each other, in our world, we don't care if it's more convenient to send our industry overseas. We're not playing games with our children's future and our grandchildren's future. We're not giving away anything to these people out of ease, or something that's more convenient or hospitable or profitable for us right now. The difference between our future, our world, and the current one is we will make no mistake in giving away our sovereignty to these people. And I'm not asking of anyone to give their death to this cause, like the government might think that I am. I'm asking for all of you to give your life. We have 50 years. We have 50 years before this whole process cannot be undone. In our lifetime, in most of the men in this room's lifetime, this will come undone. And if it doesn't, it never will.